Hi, I'm Edgar Phillips, and today I just want to talk about some quantum physics and specifically about Thomas Young's double slit experiment. And not to go into the depth of quantum physics, but really to go into understanding a little bit more about God. Understanding what science is proving today, whether it's quantum physics or epigenetics, is really our God's mind and His Spirit, how He works. And not only that, if we understand that and we are made into His image, then we can also understand ourselves and understand how we can create situations, how we can create events, and how just our own way of thinking, behaving, attitude, and so forth have created the situation where we're in now. And now, before I go into that, I want to explain to you how Thomas Young's double slit experiment works. Show you a little 5-minute clip, animation video, also explaining this experiment.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this. Two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern! We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter, through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. They're clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of 2 bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function by observing.
And so what they realized at the end they realized that the observer that came there collapsed the wave into one state. So the particle or the electron actually acted like a wave, hitting the back of the wall with an interference pattern. The moment the physicist came and stood there, he was the observer, he came to measure. The moment he came to measure there, he said, suddenly the electron changed from a wave pattern to a particle pattern. And so what they realized was the observer's reality, the fact that the observer came and measured, collapsed the wave into a particle. Now that is, in short, Young's experiment. It sounds like, it's impossible. It sounds like, this is freaky. It sounds like it's out of this world. How can it show an interference pattern? How can it behave like a wave? But the moment someone came in and stood there and observed, suddenly it behaved differently. And so what they realized is just the act of measuring, the very act of coming in there, an observer coming in with his perception, his ideas, his belief about reality, collapsed the wave into one state, into a solid state of materia and particle. The fact that the physicist said, this is impossible, it must be a particle, let me go and observe, let me go and measure. Suddenly the wave changed into materia, changed into a particle. Now, what does it tell us? It tells us this. The world that we see, the world that you see, is only a reflection of your internal state of being. The world that I see is only a reflection of my internal state of being. So what do you mean by that? Well, I got a new phone the other day. It's a BlackBerry. And it's only after I got the BlackBerry phone that I suddenly saw how many other BlackBerries there were on the market. I suddenly saw how many other people got BlackBerry mobile phones. Suddenly I realized, but everywhere I watch, I just see BlackBerries. I didn't see that beforehand. It was only once. Now maybe it's happened to you. You want to buy a new car, you want to buy a new dress, a pair of shoes, a specific brand name, and it's only after you've said, this is what I want, this is the brand name, the car, that you suddenly realize how many of those specific things, brand names, car models, are there on the market. So your internal state of being is of the world that we see is actually a reflection of our internal state of being. Let me put it another way. Let's say you've got an issue with weight. If you walk in a shopping center, who do you see? You only see overweight people. Why? Because that's your internal state of being. That is what you struggle with. That is your thing, your internal state of being, and that's what you see. So let's say you're a man and you like women with blonde hair. You walk into a shopping center, what do you see? You only see women with blonde hair. So the world we see is a reflection of our internal state of being. Now the Bible puts it this way. Titus 1 verse 15 says this. Paul writing to Titus says, to the pure, and I'm reading from the Amplified Bible, to the pure in heart and conscience, all things are pure. But to the defiled and corrupt and unbelieving, nothing is pure. Their very minds and consciences are defiled and polluted. It's exactly what I've just said. It says, if you're pure inside, the world you see is pure. If you are defiled in the inside, whatever defiled may mean to you, the world outside is defiled. We can be neighbors. And so the one neighbor is in a peaceful state, he's really relaxed, at peace with himself, with life, never have really relationship problems. The neighbor next door, he always has relationship turmoil, always had turmoil with other people and with relationships. So they've got another neighbor across the street. So the one that's on a relaxed, very peaceful internal state, he never has a problem with that one. But his neighbor that always has these relationship issues, guess what? He will have an issue, he will have a problem with that neighbor across the street. And so when they talk to one another, the one that's peaceful and the other one that's got the turmoil, when they talk to one another, the one with the turmoil will say, this neighbor across the street, I've got so many, I can't believe he said this, he's done that, he's doing this. And the one that's in a peaceful internal state, you would think, but I never have any problems with him. I don't know what's happening here. So, again, the world we see is only a reflection of our internal state of being. To the pure in heart and conscience, all things are pure. To the defiled and corrupt and unbelieving, all things are impure. So let's take it a little bit further.